ends this year tomorrow against Wolfsburg. So welcome to the press conference with Thomas Tuchel here at Säbener Straße. Let's start with the questions.
Thomas, gab ja einige Grippekranke zuletzt
there
vor dem
were
Spiel
a
gegen
couple
VfB
of
Stuttgart. Wie steht's um diese Erkrankten und sind noch mehr Verletzte und
sick
Angeschlagene?
players? How are they doing? And are any further injuries or no? Not now, and we hope that there will be no further players out with Leo and Josh. They're pretty much touch and go on an hourly basis. It's going to be really tight. We fly tomorrow morning, so it's going to be a really close race. But other than that, no further injuries. So we hope that everyone is available that was available and was in the squad last time. Mr. Tuchel, against Stuttgart, you had less possession and lots of transition moments. Is that your plan against Wolfsburg as well? No, that was because of the quality Stuttgart. It wasn't really our plan to not have a high possession rate. It is difficult to really have a high line against them with a 3-2 or 4-2. They sometimes have 6 players behind the ball, and then there's Alexander Nübel, who's good on the ball as well. They have good automatisms and really short distances in between players, and we knew that we had to be very clever in closing them down and get good transition moments or force them to play the long ball. And we also knew that a 4-4-2 is not the ideal structure to create pressure against Stuttgart. And so we could imagine that there would be phases when Stuttgart gets into the flow and they have the best players available, that they have lots of possession, but we had to be very diligent in our central block, and that's what we did. Very disciplined tactically, and additionally, we had a couple of players from the start that didn't have a good rhythm, that hadn't played in that position too often centrally. And you could tell from the start where we had a couple of easy losses of possession. In the second half, we had more possession in Stuttgart, but all in all, we didn't have that much possession, but it could very well be more than at the start, but you can still control a game by defending well, and that's how it felt. It felt like we had the control, even though we were not in possession, because we were diligent and playing well. Well, you need an answer for everything. We want to be better in possession, but it depends on what the opponent is doing. Stuttgart has a special way of playing. Wolfsburg has a different way of playing. We expect them to play at 5 at the back and a very tight midfield. We have to wait, but it's good to have an answer ready, whether we have lots of the ball against a deep block or whether the opponent has the ball and we have to suffer, and that was a good mix. A bit more possession is something that we wish for, but there were reasons why that wasn't the case, and now there's a different task ahead, but we are not making any plans as far as the prognosis is concerned. What is about to happen, it's about our mobility, about our bravery, and about the distances in between the players, and then we have to see how the game goes and whether we find the answers. Mr. Tuchel, I wanted to ask how much you are thinking about the Africa Cup and Asian Cup at Leverkusen. They're missing 5 players probably. How are you coping with your team And once they are back from that tournament, well, with news, we have to wait whether he will be eligible to play there. But we're going to miss him anyway, whether he plays or whether he will be still out injured. Then that's Choupo and Minje. And if you look at our game and the bench, and you just imagine those further two players with Choupo and Minje that made the squad, if they hadn't been there, then you know the answer to that question, because I don't know whether it at all was possible to really deliver a performance like that. We probably had only 12 players available. But if you want to plan a season, then you know about the situation, then it's a topic in between Christoph and me, but not me and the players, because the players like to play for their country, and it's really unfortunate that all the teams, not only the German teams, but all the teams have to do this in a season. It is strange, but it's always been that way, and we have to cope with it and find solutions. But I don't know what that would mean for the German championship. Everybody knows that this tournament is taking place and everyone has to cope with it, and we're not going to use it as an excuse. No, are we trying to create some scenarios? We have to see for ourselves that we, during those 4 weeks, which are right around 5 games for us with the Union game, that we are just, well, we'll somehow get over that, because they have 15 points in those 5 games. We need to be competitive as far as the squad is concerned. So it is definitely a topic, and we try to make the best out of it. Mr. Tuchel, after the last game, a lot has been talked about Alex Pavlovic. You were really happy about his composure and performance. So the last couple of months, the holding midfielder was always talked about. Is his development changing any of your plans for the transfer window? Are you still looking for a new player? Yes and no. We knew that we had Alex, and Alex was always strong in practice. Also last season when he was part of our practice squad, we know what he can do, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, because that would just not help anyone. It wouldn't help Bayern Munich, it wouldn't help Alex Pavlovic, because he's only 19 years old. He cannot be the solution for Bayern Munich. You're talking to the coach that trusts him. We've taken him to our practice. He's a member of our squad. That's not going to change. It's not going to change if we acquire a new midfielder who would be, from his profile and his experience, taking the club a bit further. We're going to do everything that is helping the club to proceed and to be successful. We're all going to do what helps the development of our campus players. We're all fan of our campus, and we trust the players, and we don't look at a player as being old or young or being expensive or not. That's not going to play a role. He'd really deserved it, because he's playing well in practice and the way he goes about things, but I don't want to give him that much of a load. He probably can play another game, maybe he has to play another game, but if you play in those midweek games, 2 games in a row, and at home and everything, this can definitely be a burden on the player. But we don't want to lift him too high in order to take him down afterwards, maybe. But he's going about his business very humble, with a laugh on his face every day, and that's the most important. But the competition, if you want to make it at Bayern Munich, then it's no difference to any other club that is fighting for a title. You're always going to have competition, and the quality will at the end prevail. Uli Hoeneß was talking about a comeback of Toni Kroos at the national team. You know several of his competitors for that position. Do you think he could help the national team? Well, fortunately, this is not at all my thing to talk about the squad of the national team. And it's only Julian's thing to decide on that, and he's going to be happy if I don't say anything about it, because that would make things even more difficult for him. I do not know what his plans are as far as the personnel is concerned or the tactics, and we'll just leave it like that, because the less coaches are talking about it, it's going to be easier for Julian, and that's why I'm not going to talk about it. Mr. Tuchel, one question about Sven Ulreich. Is he still feeling unwell, or is he going to be part of the squad? Well, it looks like Daniel will stay in the squad and Ole won't come back.
Okay, dann hinten Manuel Schwarz für die DPA noch zum Schluss.
Final question.
Hallo Tuchel, Weihnachten ist immer so eine Zeit, wo man
At Christmas time is always a time where you can look back at the year and then you can wish for something. If you look back at the past year and sum it up in a few sentences, and what is your biggest wish for the next year? Well, health. Health is always on number one. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of looking back at things, because it's always a bit of a sentimental feeling. You don't want to have that as a coach, and me, as far as my personality is concerned, I'm always trying to look ahead, and particularly not before the final game. I'm not going to sum things up. I only know in a competitive environment like we have, it's only about the next game. You cannot really rest on your laurels from the past game, and so I'm not going to sum things up. I hope for your understanding that we're always looking ahead, because if I just talk about summing up things, I would forget probably about a couple of things that happened, because a lot of things happened, but we're on a good track, and we try to solve our issues in the best way possible, and have the club in the center and develop our squad, and it's always exciting, and there's lots of media coverage, but that is completely normal when you work at Bayern Munich or a big club for that matter. So everything is well. We're looking forward to a break, but we want to take the next step tomorrow, and then we're going to be ready from January 2nd. Yesterday, the draw for the Champions League took place. What do you say to your opponent for the round of 16 and the other German matchups? Well, I know not too much about Lazio, an Italian team that is looking for results, very result-oriented, a very good coach, a very experienced coach that used to be very successful and who always is playing special tactics and is always thinking about things in order to surprise others, Maurizio Sarri. But other than that, I wasn't getting into this too much, because it was really close after Stuttgart and before the Wolfsburg game. Our aim is obviously to proceed into the next round. We won our group, so we have the second round of fixtures at home. I've never played at Rome, I've never played against Lazio, so it's a club with huge tradition. You know, they are playing in light blue, they got emotional fans. We're looking forward to that challenge, because it's always a challenge to play a knockout game against an Italian opponent. We must not just look at the table in Italy, where they are a bit back from what they were actually trying to be at that stage. But when it comes to knockout games, it's 2 times 90 minutes. where it's about what you can bring to the table on that particular day as far as injuries, as far as your form is concerned. But we want to win after 180 minutes and proceed in the next round. And the other opponents of Leipzig and Dortmund, well, Leipzig Real is probably the biggest opponent with the biggest names, one of the greatest clubs in the world for Marco and RB. And there's always a chance for an outsider in a round of 16, this time for RB, who are the outsiders in that role, I guess, but they're going to feel right at home in that role and are probably not going to have a problem with it. And Eindhoven against Dortmund is probably a duel on the same level, and they have all the chances to proceed. Dortmund, that is. But once the games are underway, everybody's gonna put his game on the table and to be right on the highest level for that particular moment. But we are only looking at ourselves. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.